Felicia had just opened her laptop and was ready to start working on her project, and the loud pulsing rock music began in her neighbor's apartment. Since the new neighbor moved in over a month ago, he had been playing his music at top volume during the day, evening, and night. Previously, she was able to put her earbuds in and ignore it, but now she had had enough. It was time to tell her neighbor that he could not play his loud music at all hours of the day. "That's it," she said, irate as she put her things aside and went out the door. She walked down the hall to the next apartment and knocked forcefully until the door was yanked open from her, mid-knock. "Hey, can I help you?" a tall, white guy asked as he leaned against the door. He wore a faded red flannel shirt over a white tank and loose-fitting denim jeans. He was handsome in a very classic, all-American way, with short cropped blonde hair, twinkling blue eyes, and a chiseled granite jawline. "Please, can you turn down your music?" Felicia asked nicely. "What? You think my music's too loud?" he asked teasingly as he shouted over the music. "Yes, it's too loud," Felicia shouted back, noting his mocking tone. "Are you going to turn it down?" "Maybe." He smiled, looking her up and down. Felicia was an attractive girl with a smooth chocolate complexion, dark brown eyes, and a small button nose. She wore her naturally curly hair up in a messy bun. "Really?" Felicia rolled her eyes with her hands on her hips. "My eyes are up here. I don't think that we have properly met before." He smiled, then introduced himself. "I'm Will." He extended his hand. "Felicia," she said, shaking his hand reluctantly. "Nice to finally meet you, Felicia," he said with a smile. "So, your music. Are you going to turn it down? And I don't mean to sound bitchy or anything, but your music is way too loud, like all the time. I'm in grad school, I need to study, and I can't concentrate with your music blaring like that, all the time. Maybe you can take it down just a few notches?" Felicia asked. "Will finally turn the volume down with the remote." "Better?" he asked. "Sure," she said as she turned and walked away. Will enjoyed the view as she walked away. He smiled to himself before closing the door. Later that evening, Will sat in bed, playing games on his computer, when he heard loud from his neighbor's apartment. Since moving in last month, he had only heard them twice before, and he was able to tune it out by putting on his headphones or going to another room. Now that he had actually met his neighbor, Felicia, he found himself intrigued and a bit excited. The next day, Will was transferring his wet laundry to the dryer in the shared laundry room in the basement of the apartment building. Felicia came in carrying a basket of laundry on her hip. Will just smiled as Felicia loaded her laundry into the washing machine. "So, you had a busy night last night, huh? Studying?" he asked. Yeah, I was," Felicia said. "Then your boyfriend came over?" Will grinned. She was wearing a loose t-shirt and cut-off jean shorts. "Don't worry, you didn't have me up all night." "Actually, it was over rather quickly," he teased. Felicia turned to him. "What is that supposed to mean?" Will shrugged. "Just saying, I think our bedrooms share a mutual wall." Felicia tried not to show that she was embarrassed and blushing. What? You were listening? What, are you a pervert or something?" Felicia asked, disgusted. "I couldn't help but listen." "You got some lungs on you for a small little thing," he teased her. Felicia slammed the lid close on the washer. "You're pathetic," she said as she walked out. Later that week, Felicia was taking the trash out to the garbage chute when she saw her neighbor, Will, enter his apartment with a cute blonde wearing a tight skimpy dress and teetering on high heels. As Will unlocked his door, he turned and smiled at Felicia. "Hey, not going out tonight, huh?" "No, I'm in for the night. Michael is out of town visiting some family for the weekend," she said, noticing how the girl clung on to Will. It was obvious this girl had only one thing on her mind right now, and chatting with his neighbor wasn't it. "Come on, Will, let's go inside," she said, tugging on his arm. Totally his type, Felicia said to herself as they disappeared into his apartment. Sure, Will was an attractive guy, Felicia thought, he probably had no problem picking up girls, so why did he get the most skanky one? As she returned to her own apartment, she wondered why she even cared who her neighbor brought home. As she settled in bed with a book to read, she heard the unmistakable sound from neighbor. She tried to tune them out and concentrate on her book. After reading the same paragraph over 5 times, Felicia realized that she couldn't focus on the words on the page. She looked over at her clock, at least 15 minutes has passed since the sound started. She shuffled out of bed and headed to the kitchen to get a glass of water. 5 minutes later, she returned to her bedroom where she was met with the sound of her neighbors. Geez. Felicia rolled her eyes as she climbed back in bed. She turned the television on to watch a late-night movie. Felicia was only superficially into the movie. She didn't even have the volume up that much, but she didn't want to admit to herself that the marathon next door was getting to her in a way she didn't expect. A few weeks later, Felicia was sitting on her couch working on her laptop when all the lights and power in her apartment went out. It had been raining with high winds outside for the past hour. Felicia guessed that the power must have been knocked out. She went to look out her window and saw that the whole block was dark. She lit some candles and arranged them around the room. They cast a soft flickering glow that left most of the room still in shadows, but she could work from the light of her laptop. Felicia just hoped that the power and lights would be restored soon or her battery would be drained. 15 minutes later, Felicia was getting worried and a little frightened of the storm. She called her boyfriend, Michael. He was supposed to stop by later after his shift at work, but he informed her that the wind and rain was too heavy for driving and that he was staying at his job until it cleared up. Now, even more worried, Felicia felt isolated and alone. Without thinking about it much, she went out in the hall and knocked on her neighbor's door. She didn't know if anyone was home and she almost turned away when the door finally opened. "Hey, what's up?" Will asked, concerned. I'm sorry. I was just wondering if your power was out, too?" Felicia asked. She averted her eyes when she noticed the little blonde trail of hair leading down to his waistband. "Yeah, I think the whole block went out," Will said, then added, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I just kind of hate storms," Felicia said, then added, "I should probably get back to my apartment, I left some candles burning." She excused herself and went back to her apartment. She leaned against her closed door, smiling. She had not expected he would answer the door like that. She especially didn't expect herself to get so flustered at the sight of him. A short while later, there was a knock on her door. She thought that Michael was able to navigate through the weather, but when she opened the door, it was only Will, now wearing a shirt with a flashlight and a smile. "I thought you might want some company," he said. Sure. I guess anything to keep my mind off this awful storm," she said, letting him in. Felicia offered him a drink as she headed into the kitchen. She came back with 2 bottles of beer, that had started to get warm since the refrigerator went out. "Here, it might be a little warm," she apologized, then sat on the couch across from him. Will took a swig, then asked, "Where's Michael, your boyfriend?" "He's stuck at work. Apparently the roads are terrible," Felicia said, then jumped suddenly from a loud thunder boom followed by the sound of a tree cracking. "It sounds scary out there." "It's okay. You're inside, safe," he said soothingly. "You're with me." Felicia smiled weakly. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" Will smiled back. "At least it made you smile." Felicia couldn't help it, his smile was infectious. "Because you are silly." She smiled, again before taking a drink from her beer. "So, what do you suggest we do to pass the time and keep your mind off the storm?" Will asked. Felicia shrugged. "I don't know." In her mind, she had several ideas, but pushed those thoughts away. "We could play a game," Will suggested. "Okay, sure." "What game?" Felicia asked. Will laughed. How about truth or dare? Really? I always hate that game. I always get dared to do something that I regret doing, Felicia said. Okay, then. How about never have I ever, he asked. Never heard of it. What is it? She asked, curious. We'll explain the rules. I say something like, never have I ever cheated on a girlfriend, and if you have cheated on your girlfriend, or boyfriend, you take a drink. Easy, right? Now it's your turn. Okay, sounds fun, Felicia said, trying to think of a good one. Never have I ever had a one-night stand. Without hesitation, Will took a drink. I guess I will be getting drunk tonight. He grinned. After a few rounds of the game, Will was starting on a second beer. Felicia was still on her first yet feeling a little buzzed and relaxed. It was Will's turn now and he was fishing for more details about Felicia. Are you trying to get me drunk? Felicia asked. Will smiled. I think the latter part of the statement is the question you should ask. You want kiss me? Felicia asked, curious. I thought you'd never ask. Will grinned, moving closer to her on the couch. Felicia moved away. No. I was asking if that was the question you were referring to. Will leant closer. Yes, that was the question and yes, I want. Felicia turned away from him, his devilish smile was too tempting for her. I'm in a relationship with Michael. You know that. Will laughed. Oh, Michael. Will abruptly cut her off with a kiss. He pressed his lips to hers. Felicia pulled away and stared at him speechless. That kiss made her really excited. I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, Will said, but before he could say more Felicia leant forward and kissed him. Will was taken by surprise, but that didn't stop him from responding immediately. Felicia. Felicia pulled away again. What am I doing? Just enjoy it, Felicia. I am. Come on, he said, coaxing more kisses from her. Will, no, I can't. Michael. He's not here and I am, and I want kiss you. Will, can you guess what happens next? Just at that moment, the electrical hum of the refrigerator started back up and the lights in her apartment came back on. I guess the power's back on. Yeah, the storm must be over, Felicia said as her breath caught up to her. Want me to leave? Will asked, knowing that was the last thing he wanted to do. Felicia shook her head, tossing her disheveled curls back and forth, then smiled mischievously.